On September 29, 2016, Cartoon Network announced that Adventure Time would be ending in 2018, and that its 9th season would be its last. I've been with Adventure Time since almost the very beginning, and while it will be sad to see one of my favorite cartoons go, I was actually kind of glad when I heard that it was going to end. I still enjoy Adventure Time quite a bit, but having an endpoint in sight gives the show an opportunity to do something it hardly ever does: end storylines. Story arcs are a thing that the show has handled poorly since its very beginning. A lot of episodes end with minor cliffhangers, and sometimes the show will go on for seasons on end before addressing something. Even the best seasons had this problem, and over time Adventure Time has accumulated many unresolved storylines. But it seems that the show is going to use its last 2 seasons to address some of these plots. Out of the 6 regular episodes of Season 7 aired so far, 5 of them focus on returning characters and plots. And this brings us to Adventure Time's second 8-part miniseries, Islands. Islands has Finn, Jake, BMO, and Susan Strong traveling across the ocean in hopes of finding out more about Finn's past and discovering what happened to the rest of the human race. Having only a few humans in the cast has been a plot point since Season 2, but it seems like Adventure Time kind of forgot about it or just didn't care for it for about half a decade. Big details of the plot, like Ice King's origin, or if Susan Strong was human or not, were just quietly revealed in unrelated episodes. But I'm glad that the show is finally addressing these issues, and in a miniseries format no less. I really enjoyed the last time the show used this format, so I'm interested to see where it goes. Without further ado, let's set sail into Islands. Islands and Stakes have a lot of similarities, but the thing that sets them apart the most is how they structure their stories throughout their 8 episodes. Stakes spends half of its time setting up and ending its story, and devotes its other half to hunting vampires. But it's not as easy to split up Islands into the same amount of chunks, as the story seems to be shaken up every 2 episodes or so. Not only does this hinder the overall impact Islands creates, but it also makes it harder for me to talk about it. So I'm just going to go through this miniseries 1 episode at a time, and mention some spoilers along the way. We begin with The Invitation, which sets up the story through action and moves along at a really steady pace. It says everything it needs to while also supplying some good gags, while also briefly giving the spotlight to side characters like Nepter and Finn's weird grass clone Fern. This episode also did a great job of increasing the scale of the story, and overall it got me really excited to keep watching and see what came next. But before I move on to the second episode, I want to talk about the new intro that was created for Islands. It's really well animated, and gives you a taste of the sights our heroes will encounter on their voyage. However, 33% of the creatures you see here only appear for about a minute in the second episode. It's a huge waste of potential, and instead we focus on Wimple the Happy Dragon. I won't go into much detail about him, but his character is pretty simple, his resolution with the heroes felt kind of forced, and he failed to leave much of an impression on me. I feel like instead we should have had an episode focusing on those dolphins with legs that ride robotic dolphins. It probably would have been the best episode of the series. Plot-wise, this episode is a mess. It can't decide if it wants to focus on the heroes heading in the right direction, or several other shenanigans with random ocean creatures. Although there were a few bits I enjoyed, Wimple the Happy Dragon was a pretty forgettable episode for what it was. I would have also liked it to include a bit more of a certain thing, but I'll come back to that later. Part 3, Mysterious Island, is where the spoilers are really going to start taking over this review. But there's only going to be minor spoilers right now, since not much happens in this episode. Finn explores one island and finds a small human named Alva and her pet bear. But Alva can only speak Swedish, which Finn and Jake in the audience don't understand. So most of the episode is Finn goofing around this island and talking to himself, which is just boring. The only moment that really caught my interest is when we find out that this island was a failed science experiment by a group of humans. However, Finn's reaction to this perfectly sums up mine.
So, that's it? That's humans?
This doesn't work as a fake-out moment, since we know that the next 4 episodes will continue to develop this plot, and it makes this episode feel pointless to the miniseries as a whole. But even though there isn't a ton of content here, I still think it's better than Wimple the Happy Dragon, since there were some terrific backgrounds and designs, and at least this episode knew to keep things focused. Imaginary Resources is a really good, but really weird episode. Finn and Jake find BMO living inside a virtual reality game along with a bunch of humans. The game itself is a parody of life simulation games like Second Life, and it highlights how odd games like that can be, with things like Finn and Jake's in-game avatars looking like they came out of another show. I also respect this episode for ending the way that it did. It criticizes those who feel that technology can only impact you negatively by showing how miserable the humans get when they are taken out of their simulation. It tells viewers to be open to alternate methods of happiness and not to be so closed-minded about what technology can do. It's a unique message and a good episode, but still it's plagued by a problem that affects this and a few other episodes. But again, I'll get back to it. While the previous 3 episodes have ranged from mediocre to good, Islands gets great again with a duo of intertwined flashback episodes where 2 friends or lovers are tragically separated. Through the accidental falling outs between Susan and her old friend Frida in Hide and Seek, and Finn's parents in Min and Marty, we get a taste of the history and environment of Founders Island, the paradise that served as the home for the last humans of the world. A bit of lore is forced into these stories. One of them begins without much of a segue, and it is a little repetitive to have 2 flashback stories back to back, but besides those nitpicks, this is a diverse and really well executed set of episodes. I was able to quickly become invested in all these characters and felt for them when they were separated. Unlike Everything Stays from Stakes, these flashback episodes are much more coherent and don't leave me with many questions. These are both high points of the miniseries, but I think I enjoy Hide and Seek a bit more for being slightly more realistic and heartbreaking. But I gotta give credit to Min and Marty for showing that Finn's father is capable of being more than just your typical deadbeat dad. Although it's kind of funny when you consider that Steven Universe had an episode that revealed how his parents met at episode 49, while Adventure Time had that episode at 250. Did I say that the show handled story arcs poorly? Well, what I meant to say was, what have you guys been doing for 7 seasons? The gang arrives at their destination and meet Finn's mother with the final 2 episodes, Helpers and the Light Cloud. Now, I understand the 7th episode's title. It refers to the robots that Finn's mother implanted her mind into in order to continue helping the humans after a deadly virus spread among them. But the title of the Light Cloud doesn't refer to anything specific in the episode. It only seems to reference the final episode of Stakes, which was titled The Dark Cloud. If I had to guess, the title may represent how the ending of Islands is the opposite of the ending of Stakes, since it's actually good.
Oh, snaps!
To clarify, I didn't think that the ending to Stakes was bad, just a little poorly executed. It had the characters learn from their journey, but it brought everything back to how it was. And while that was a previously set up theme in the miniseries, it ended up feeling very rushed and unnecessary. Islands doesn't shake things up much either, but the ending does have a stronger sense of accomplishment and feels better put together. While the 7th part of Islands is a bit slow, the final part has the great pace that the first part has, and it wraps up most of the loose ends and unanswered questions that the miniseries had created. We learn what happened to Finn's mom after Martin left her, Susan and Frida reunite, and Finn finally meets his mother, but learns that they have conflicting ideas about how one should live life. The choice between allowing for more freedom or security in a society is brought up here. And while the show does clearly favor one side, it's still an interesting argument, and one that ties in surprisingly well with today's news. So overall, Helpers and the Light Cloud are a great way to end Islands. However, I need to address the problem that I've been avoiding in this review for a while now, and that is how about 3/8 of the miniseries is filler. While they did introduce a few things that would be used later, the episodes Wimple the Happy Dragon, Mysterious Island, and Imaginary Resources did not contribute a lot to the main story. Some were enjoyable episodes in their own right, but most of them could have been taken out of the miniseries or could have just been regular episodes. This problem may have been a result of each episode having a separate team of writers and storyboard artists, but it still causes Islands to be less coherent. I don't have a problem with filler. In fact, a lot of Adventure Time could be considered filler, yet I still enjoy it. But when you limit a story to only 8 episodes but still include filler, that is when I consider it a problem. I would say that this is the biggest shortcoming of Islands, and it is what causes me to put it under Stakes. That miniseries had a very specific style, and a strong story that was told throughout all of its 8 episodes, while all of the nearly pointless detours that this miniseries takes weakens its identity. Islands has a great intro, artwork, and some very strong episodes, but it doesn't all come together. I feel like that this was a pretty satisfying conclusion to the human story arc, but Adventure Time still needs to work on structuring its story arcs a little. I still think that the miniseries format can work really well for this show, and I hope that the crew behind it give it another go. It would probably be very good for ending the series, or exploring the past of another character. Please be Donnie, please be Donnie, please be Donnie. I would give Islands a score of 7.5 out of 10. I recommend it, but only if you have some prior knowledge on Adventure Time, since if that isn't the case, you'll just be very confused and think that I'm crazy for thinking that this is good. Even if you aren't very interested in the show much anymore, I would still advise that you watch this and Season 7. I've said this before, but Adventure Time has really picked up in quality again. It isn't perfect or the best it's ever been, but I still think that it's worth your time. But before I end this video, I'm going to count down my top 5 episodes from Islands. I did it with Stakes, so why not do it again? Since I already covered each episode pretty extensively a few minutes ago, I'll just give a basic list. Number 5, Imaginary Resources. Number 4, Min and Marty. Number 3, The Invitation. Number 2, Hide and Seek. And number 1, The Light Cloud. Well, I can't think of any other way to end this, so here's a bird bursting out of Jake's stomach.
I can fit, I just need to... Ah!